First off, this has been a hard case to hear. It's a tragedy. It's very sad. And we appreciate you guys serving as jurors this month. This has been a tough month for cases here in Sumner County. The first thing I like to do when I talk to juries is explain to you guys that these instructions, the judge just went through them. It's not a menu, okay? You can't get to a lesser included offense unless you all unanimously agree to not guilty on the first count. And the first count, premeditated first-degree murder, is what we have. That's what happened on June 29, 2024 to Trinity Bostic. And we spent a lot of time here talking about and looking at the last moments of Trinity Bostic's life. She was a 17-year-old girl. She had a family that loved her. She had a number of siblings, brothers and sisters, and both her mom and her dad. And her life was cut short by the actions of Fernando Mejia. So I'm going to go forward to the evening of July 6th. And let's talk about the statement that Mr. Mejia gave to Detective Scalise. Because every portion of that statement is untrue and does not line up with the evidence that we have in the case. And then we're going to walk through the evidence and show you guys a timeline of what we know from the evidence happened on June 29, 2024. Everything we can define for you as to what happened to Trinity Bostic. Now, Detective Scalise takes him outside and he says, "Do you know Trinity?" And he says, "What Trinity?" "Bostic." And then he says, "Bostic? Oh, the thing on the news." Detective Scalise, "When's the last time you spoke to her?" 2 years ago. Detective Scalise, 2 years ago. Okay. Somewhere around there. You keeping up with her on social media or anything like that? No. She's blocked me on everything. Detective Scalise, "I just told you the cell phone records show you having conversations with her on the 29th. I want to ask you some questions in regards to that." "I mean, yeah, she called me." "Who's your girlfriend?" "Michaela Taylor." "Michaela Taylor." "Okay, so we know you're the last person that saw her alive." "No, I didn't see her. She called me." "She called you?" "Yeah, she called me. She said if she could stay with me." And I was like, "No, my parents are here. She was just looking for a place, I guess." "On the 29th? I'll go up a little higher. "You picked her up in Lafayette, so I know you picked her up in Lafayette." Fernando Mejia says, "When?" "On the 29th. Fernando Mejia says, "I was with my girlfriend the whole time." "About calling her, you said you haven't called her in 2 years, haven't spoken to her." "No, I haven't seen her in 2 years." "All right, but you have, because I got you picking her up and bringing her back to your house, right?" "I didn't pick her up, though, or anything. She just called me about staying here." "I didn't even pick her up. I don't know what else you want me to say. She called me, for a place to stay. And that's pretty much it. She said she was going to come here to, see me. See if you could actually spend time here." And I was like, "No, because isn't your dad home?" And she was like, "No, it's fine." "I haven't seen her, though." "But you have." "I haven't." "Then where did you take her?" "I didn't take her anywhere." "I don't know what else y'all want me to say." He gets confronted with all the testing and the data and everything they have. "Tell me what happened that day. How am I supposed to know? I'm not her. I didn't bring her back here or anything. My girlfriend has to be home at 10. She stayed until, okay, the detective says, I gotta check my records. Are you saying that you did that? That didn't happen, that you were here the whole night with your girlfriend? And he says, no, my girlfriend has to be home at like 10, until I dropped her off at 10. Okay, where does she live? Westmoreland. What's her name? Michaela Taylor. It's confronted with the TDOT cameras and all the cell phone data. And he starts to tell another story. When asked to tell the truth, again, to comply with the evidence, he starts telling them, some guy named Jose, I don't know his name. Apparently they were talking. She had me pick him up. She had you pick up Jose. Yep. From where? It was a Gallatin. What do you call it? By the Gap. Okay. So now he's talking about why he picked her up. So my girlfriend would hate me if I ever wanted to pick her up or anything. So I said no multiple times. And she said, please, can you come get me now, please? And her dad, was strict. So I really don't want to get into that. So I told her no and hung up the phone. And did she call me back or did I call her back? Then I think I called her back. And okay, why do you need me to pick you up? She said, because so much things are going wrong. I just need for you to help me. And I was like, okay. So I went to pick her up. And then we went to pick up that guy. Jose, Detective Scalise. Yeah. And they just told me to drive. Where were they? They were just talking in the back seat. I don't know. What does Jose look like? Long hair. How old? 20-something. Where was Trinity sitting? She was in the front, and then they got in the back. They both got in the back when? Well, when he got in. So she was in the front when you were driving to Gallatin. They both got in the back, yeah. So he told me to drop them off. They told me to pull over. Where did they tell you to pull over? On the bypass, right there, 386, before exit 6. Sorry, that's Detective Scalise. Where you told me, and then he says on the bypass, right there, Detective Scalise, that's 386. They said they needed to pee. I pulled over. I didn't get out. I was right there, because the guy was driving. After I picked him up, he said, drive. And then we switched seats. I don't remember where. And then, because I don't know where they wanted to go. So he's like, you know what, just might as well just go to my driver's seat. They needed to pee, and the guy came back by himself, and then he drove off. He drove off? He drove off. Where were you? He drove off with you in the car? I didn't get out. I stayed in the car. And then where did you guys go? The loop thing. Because I thought he left her. I thought he left her. So I was like, bro, are you not going to go back for her? And he's like, no. I'm like, why isn't she your girl? He said, it is my girl. But why do I have to go back for her? I mean, you're driving my car, go back, right? So then he got out, tried to look for her. He said he didn't find anything. I did not want to get out with him. Did you hear any gunshots? No. The music was going. Gets confronted with gun evidence at the scene, lining up with a 9mm, and at that point they've already found 9mm rounds in the house. So they're asking about the gun. And he says, that's the only thing. I think that's the only thing. The magazine. I know they're going to find the gunman. Mejia. Don't know where it is. What about Jose? You have a number for Jose? No, she told me to pick him up. Okay. Did she call Jose? I do know these bullets in your house. The matching bullets are the ones that are found on the side of the road. Mr. Mejia, the matching bullets that you found on the side of the road? So what really happened? What happened on June 29th, 2024. First of all, this is premeditated, first-degree murder. This did not start on June the 29th. This plan started before that. It started on June 20th, 2024. We know that Mr. Mejia has a girlfriend. Her name is Michaela Taylor, and we know that he's having sexual relationships with Trinity Boston. How do we know that? We know that from this message right here. You're welcome. By the way, I'm not pregnant from the last time. Just thought you should know. Okay, good, ML. Now, 17-year-old boy, got a girlfriend, sleeping around with other girls, and he's had a pregnancy scare, right? When you look at the photographs of the search that was done, you will see a pregnancy test in a bag. Let's go forward. 6/25/24, 3:44 a.m. These are in UTC time, so you have to go back 5 hours to calculate the actual time. You want to come with me? Yes, she responds, 3:45. But I still won't have any money to go anywhere or anything. I just want to run away with you. 6/25/24. This is 5 hours before. Baby, just come with me, please. I need you. 4:46 a.m. Universal Time. What are you thinking of? Either conning people or just straight up robbing places. We could, but then the police would get my license plate number. And then I'm effed unless we steal a car and take my car back home and just leave with the stolen one. That sounds a lot smarter than to switch out the plates with someone else's somewhere along the way. Because I'm going to leave in a few days and go into Alabama for the 6/26, 11:38 p.m. You got to subtract 5 hours. Still got to leave on Saturday. That's the next day, 6/27/24. 6/27/24, 10:58 p.m. UTC time. Do you know that we're going to have to take the cars at night, right? He responds, yes, I know. Now, June 29th, 2024, we know that Trinity went to work with her dad that morning, and he takes her home, and then she comes back over. So we see this action through a text message with her dad, right? And then we know from her dad's testimony on June the 29th, the last time that Mr. Bostic ever sees his daughter alive is when she left the shop and she goes home. And he told you that he had his children text him when they would get somewhere. So we see that text message, and we know what time she presumably went home and loaded up her bag. But the reason why Trinity doesn't want to be there anymore isn't because she's going to go do yard work. It's because she and the defendant have made a plan, right? They've got a plan here. They're going to run away together, right? Or so she thinks that's what they're going to do. And part of this plan involves committing some crimes, right? They've been talking about it for days now. We're going to steal a car, change out the plates, drop his car, and then go down to Alabama, right? And it's not in my slideshow, but there's a really compelling message where Trinity is clearly in love with Mr. Bostic. And that was read into evidence when Detective Scalise was on the stand, and that's in the materials that you guys have and you can review. There is no Jose, okay? That young lady was completely and totally infatuated with that young man right there. She was in love with him, despite the fact that he was dating someone else. And she was so in love with him that she was going to go along with whatever he wanted to do. And that's what she did that day. They got together. And he's the one that's pursuing this conduct here. This message, if you take it back 5 hours, is at 1:39. She is still at her dad's shop, and he says, "Hello, are you ready?" He's ready to go. And then she responds, "Well, give me a couple, I'm not even home." ALR, should I go ahead and be at the church or meet you somewhere? This is at 1:53. And then at 1:58, be at the church. And here we go, right here. We have them rolling along. And right here, Trinity turns off all location apps on the phone because she's gonna, in her mind, run away with him. Now, at 4:03 p.m., Mr. Bostic gets home, and his daughter is not there. And he pretty speedily files a missing person report. And Trinity is still alive for at least another 5 hours at this point. And Mr. Bostic does what every parent probably would do. He files his missing person report for his 17-year-old daughter. And he continues to message her, looking for her. So we know that he goes home at 4:03, and these messages continue. They're here. And at 5 p.m., he gets the last response that he will ever get. Those are the last words that he will ever hear, or not hear, see. The last message communicated to him from Trinity Bostic at 5 p.m. "I am okay. Sorry." And he never hears anything else from his daughter. But we see more. We know that at 5:49 p.m., based on our records, they're driving along and they're on Caldwell Drive. That's 45 minutes after that message. Mr. Bostic's message continued until 6:43 p.m. and then he sends one on June 30th, 2024. And I think there was some testimony about what happens to an iPhone message when the message is cut off and the phone is disconnected from the service. It no longer goes through as an iMessage. And you see that here because Trinity's phone has been completely taken off the network. And we know that happens because we had Mr. Valley come in and talk about all of the data that he sees from the cell phones. But right down there on June 30th, 2024, at 7:06, Trinity is already dead at this point. 7:06 a.m. on June 30th, we know that she's dead. And her cell phone has been taken and traveled with the defendant until he disposed of it in some way. Then we have another flock camera at 5:52 p.m. on June 29th. We're on Center Point Road here at that time. We're going to go forward. 5:54 p.m. We're on 31E and 386. And then we have this video right here. And in these videos, you see them. The bulk of this. The bulk of this is them following cars. If you watch it closely, sometimes you have to hear it more than once. If you have any questions about it, but they're talking about tracking vehicles. They're looking for vehicles. At times, they'll be talking about something that they did, but that's what they're doing in these videos. And this car riding, all this riding around that they do. And I mean, if you look at Mr. Valley's presentation with that cell phone data, they're in Lebanon. Looks like they go in and touch like the edge of Nashville, travel up to Millersville at some point, and then they're back mainly in Hendersonville and Gallatin, right? And these cameras have not just a this view, and I think you saw a couple of them, but they also have the front view of the car, where you can see what's happening outside of the vehicle. So we have focused here on the back, but the front view is there as well, where you can see whatever's happening with the car as they're driving along. Now, Mr. Mejia is the one that has a gun in the car. Here we are at 5:59. It's interesting, the more you watch these videos, you can actually see when they hit the bumps that cause these to activate in the car. Of course, you guys know this is not continuously recording. But this is the video where at 6:24, he pulls out a gun in this one. And you see that gun as he puts on his hoodie and he begins to make a plan with her as they're pursuing a car. There it is, right there. She's getting it on him. That's the gun. That's the gun that he tells Detective Scalise that he hasn't seen in months. And that's the gun that's used that evening to kill Trinity Boston. We go forward. 6:48 p.m. They're at Hartsville Pike and Governor Hall Road. And here we have them separate. And I did a calculation here on this text message to show you what time it is. It's 7:27 p.m. And if you look at that previous video and you listen closely, they're making a plan there in this pursuit or whatever they're doing to rob a car or steal a car. They make a plan to separate there. He's telling her to go back to the gas station and wait for him there, right? And that incident is a little bit earlier than this separation. But as we see them progressing on this drive, it's clear they've not had any successful carjacking situation because they're still in the car together, right? So she says here, I'm here, but your car is like disabled. And then he says, IK, which is presumably I know, I have the keys. So she's parked somewhere, right here, waiting on him. And then he says, I have the keys. Just be sure you parked where no one can see you, and I'll be there, okay? That's at 7:27 p.m. And then she says, I'm like at the beginning at a gas pump. Now, during and right after this time period, we have them right here in this area, according to these ARC overlays from the Andrew Valley testimony. And then at 8:19 to 8:56, we have them here, right around Airport Road and Hartsville Pike in Gallatin, in this area. And here is the time when we have Trinity's last interaction with her phone, where there's human intervention. The phone presumably stays in the car, but she's not on it, not touching it, not doing anything with it. Because we know here, after this call is made, where she's on the phone with Mr. Mejia for 24 minutes and 24 seconds. So something's going on there. They're not in that car together. Presumably they've separated again in pursuit of some vehicle, okay? Now right after this, we have this video. And this video is the video where Trinity is last seen alive. And the only person in the car with her is Mr. Mejia. And if you watch this video, there's a couple of things.
Imagine that 5% tint, or else they look so
Now, this is after that 24-minute time period. Okay? If you're still alone, you're the only people in the car. He does not have his seatbelt on, which I think is of note. It keeps making that buzzing sound. So he's clearly been out of the vehicle and gotten back in at some point and not put on his seatbelt. He says they are hot, bro. I think they think the police, it appears they think the police are pursuing them.
There's a car, there's a car, there's a car, there's a car. Fucking car. I told you. There's a car, there's a car, there's a car. Almost fucking died right there. Yeah, I scared you. I'm the one on this side. You would have hit me. You would have been fine. You need to calm down and focus. You need to calm down and focus. I'm being serious. They're going hella fast. The white one. Is that the one we're tracking? No.
here, that's the position that she stays in. And that's the last time that we see Trinity alive. She's embracing Mr. Mejia. And this ends at 9:39. So after this moment, what do we know? There's no data for Mr. Mejia's device between 9:56 p.m. and 10:14 p.m. Right? That was in Mr. Valley's report. So at some point, he takes some action here to make sure that his device is not contacting the server. Ladies and gentlemen, that's premeditation. He wanted to hide this act. It's a conscious choice right there. The whole day, everything's being tracked. But from 9:56 to 10:14, there's no data on that device. Why? Because he made a choice about what he's going to do. He did it. Now, we know from the T-Dot cameras, which if you really want to study them, you can. Detective Scalise has done that for you. And he testified about what it shows. But we know the moments, the actual time period is about a 5-minute increment when Trinity Bostic is killed on the side of 386. And we know she's killed there because that spent casing that matches his gun is found about 2 feet from her body. And it directly matched the other 6 test fire rounds. We'll get there. But let's look at how we know the time period, walking through all the data, all the investigation, all the work that was done by multiple law enforcement agencies. Let's talk about when we know this happened. All right. We've got another camera. Clock system. 10:05 p.m. right here. Where are we? 31E, 386. So then, between 10:09 and 10:13, that's the moments when Trinity Bostic died. And we know the defendant at 9:56 has done something to pull his phone off the network because there's no activity during that time period when he's there. And we know from the T-Dot camera that he's on the side of the road between 10:09 and 10:13. And this is the time period when Trinity Bostic is killed. Right there on the side of 386. And the evidence shows you that Trinity probably was peeing on the side of the road when she was shot. Her pants are pulled down around her buttocks. You can see that from the way that her body was decaying. It was decaying more severely in the area that was exposed. And so you could see where her pants were when they got there, right? So we also know from the trajectory of the bullet that he was probably up higher than her because it's a downward shot, right? It goes down this way. It goes actually to her left cheek. I'm on the wrong side because I'm right-handed. But it goes here and it goes down and it lands over here, and it does damage in her voice box and her trachea, all kinds of damage through here. And that man right there is who shot and killed her with his cannon gun between 10:09 p.m. and 10:13 p.m. June 29th, 2024. Premeditation. Now, we know from the clock system and from the cell phone data that for some reason he decides to return. Detective Scalise gives him a theory in that interview, gives his theory. But we know from the data that he turns around, gets off, and comes back. We have it on both flock and we have it on the cell phone data, this U-turn that's done. And we also know that Trinity Bostic's device, her cell phone, is still traveling with her. You see this route on both the flock and the cell phone. And again, we have a time period where there is no data for Mr. Mejia's device between 10:20 and 10:33. And we know that the defendant is driving alone. There is no Jose. Jose does not exist. Mr. Mejia is Jose. He shot and killed her. Maybe he was worried that she was pregnant. Maybe he was worried about his girlfriend. Maybe he was worried about whatever had happened in the car. You see him driving 2226. This is the front view of the camera to show you exactly where he goes and where he stops. And then we have the second stop at the T-dot camera, 10:27 to 10:32. Detective Scalise talked to you a little bit about that because he gets out and he's pretty fast back in the car. But he says the camera shows him pull up, stop, turn on the flashers, and then move the car forward some, and then get out. And is there for about a 5-minute period. And that's the 10:27 to 10:32 period where he's back at the scene. And then we have him driving. 10:55. He's driving through Gallatin. It appears, if you look in the windows there, you can see where he's driving. And he looks really calm, considering that Trinity Bostic is dead on the side of the road on 386, shot and killed with a bullet from his gun. We have him at 1102, 31E, and Rockbridge Road. And then we have him here, ladies and gentlemen, getting a Baja Blast at 11:25 p.m. He gets a slushie at Taco Bell after killing Trinity Bostic. Trinity's body is discovered by a T-dot worker on the side of the road, July 3rd, 2024. The police are contacted. And here we are. The investigation begins. Trinity's glasses are in her hands. She's right-handed. The glasses are a direct match. And we have this shirt. It's up in the tree. A little tree limb there it's stuck to. There's Trinity on social media wearing that shirt. Now, I would argue that this spot right here is most likely the area where the defendant was standing when he shot and killed Trinity Bostic. We know right here in this blackened area is the area where her body was found. And why was Mr. Mejia standing there? Well, because you'll remember from the testimony, they found a live round, a round that still had a bullet in it. So something happened with the gun, or he dropped a 9mm round there. And this lines up too, I would argue, with where this casing is found, which is somewhere right over here in this area the next day on July 4th. It would have ejected. Right here is the round that they found on the ground. And then we go to the house and we start executing the search warrant. And we find this go bag that Trinity had for running away with Mr. Mejia. These are her clothing items, it's her shirt, it's her pants pulled from that bag. And then we have this shell casing found. This is the connection to the defendant right here. Is that shell casing right there? Savannah Hout came in, I've already talked about this a little bit, but both this casing and the one that was found by Detective Scalise in the Chrysler are a direct match for that gun that was under his seat. And this is the same gun that you see him pull out in the video when he's riding with Trinity. If you look carefully at that video. This is where it's located. It's found right in here on that little yellow thing there. And number 3 is where her body is. And this just marks the entry here. July 4th, 2024, Dr. Carney does the autopsy. At that time, Trinity Bostic is unknown. But pretty fast, after her autopsy, I think it's the next day, Dr. Kinney comes in and does his work. But she died of a gunshot wound, a head and neck injury. And the wound path, and this is where I think the evidence shows that she was probably down beneath him when he shot her, is directed left to right, front to back, and downward. Manner of death, medical examiner ruled of homicide. Dr. Carney realizes that it's a homicide as soon as she sees this x-ray and she sees the bullet in her body. And then this is the damage to her jaw. And Dr. Kinney, of course, is very interesting. Forensic odontologist that came in and showed you. I mean, this lays it out so well here. This slide does that even a layperson can look and see the similarities between Trinity's teeth. I'd say this was probably a pretty easy identification for somebody with Dr. Kinney's expertise here. And of course, he put here in his professional opinion to a reasonable dental certainty that the remains are one and the same. The press release comes out, and that says 2025 is 2024, typo there. But if we look at this, you can see down here, I've added in here these text messages that come through, where they say, Omar says, they found your girl. And you see his reaction to that. And ladies and gentlemen, if there was any doubt in your mind that man right there, Mr. Mejia, intentionally and with premeditation killed Trinity Bostic, this video kills him. Because he looks absolutely gleeful when he figures out that they never found her body. And they know that she's dead. And then we have this discussion here in this video, which is equally disturbing. And near the end of that, you'll also hear him suggest they stop at the scene. And he acts like he doesn't know where it is, right? He asked the girlfriend something like, well, where is it? And she says something about the news article, and they act like he acts like he doesn't know where it is. He's been there twice, probably more than that. Maybe he went there between June 29th and July 5th, right? He knows exactly where this is. He knows exactly what he's done. And he suggests that they go stop by the site. Incredibly disturbing. And all caught on video. Of course, they search the vehicle. They find the gun wrapped in a shirt. The rounds match. The spent casing found 2 feet from her body. There were questions about this shirt that was wrapped in it. If you go back and look at the videos, that's not the same shirt that he had on. Just look closely at it, you can see that. And then, of course, while Detective Mullins is out searching the car, Detective Edwards and others are in the house, and she's in there for some part of it too. But they locate Trinity's debit card up there, underneath some stuff, hidden. Why? Premeditated murder. That's why. And we've got this go bag with all of her stuff. And then we have here these AirPods. They've been put into evidence, and the serial number matches the box from her dad's house that Detective Splee's photograph of. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mejia is guilty of first-degree murder. The evidence is all laid out for you, and has been over the last 4 days now. The verdict here is guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, General Wiley. May take your equipment with you. And Mr. Freeman, when General Wiley is clear there, you may make your closing argument.
I agree with the general in this case. It is a tragedy. We have 2 families that are affected by this case. We have Mr. Bostic's family, obviously, but there's a toll on Mr. Mejia's family also. Now, the general wants you to believe that Mr. Mejia is guilty of first-degree murder. And the court has read you the jury instructions, and there are two different alternatives here. There's first-degree murder, and then there's second-degree murder. There's some slight differences. And those differences depend primarily on the proof that's been presented in this case. I don't present the state's case, they do. And I'll remind you of something that the judge said. Statements of the attorneys, in my statements or the general statement, they're not evidence. The evidence has been presented through the witnesses, through the exhibits. That's your evidence. So I take a little bit of deference to some of the presentation by the state. I'll remind you that, again, as to these specific charges, these two different charges, Mr. Mejia is presumed to be innocent until you find that he is not. And that's after deliberation. And then soon you will start that process. So just for the next few minutes, though, Mr. Mejia is entitled to that presumption of innocence, which means that while I'm up here listening, you should approach what I'm saying with that in mind. He's presumed innocent. In this case, there's a lot of speculation on the part of the state. I've never been in a case, I'm going to be honest with you, I've never been in a case where there was this much forensic evidence. There's a lot of forensic evidence. There's a lot of information for you as a jury to digest. Some of it matches up. Some of it doesn't, in my mind. Typically, I would say there's no witness in this case, but I'd be misleading you if I told you that. There is a witness in this case. There's that dash cam in Mr. Mejia's vehicle. And that's probably the best witness, to be honest with you, that you could ask for, because that witness doesn't come with any bias, and that witness isn't delivering you information from their own interpretation. You're seeing it as it happened. And why do I tell you that? And that is because the state wants you to believe that this case is based on premeditation. And what I submit to you is in this video, you see on that June 29th that Mr. Mejia and Ms. Bostic, they're not fighting. They're not arguing. They're just the opposite. They're affectionate. There's nothing in these videos before that point in time that the state believes that Ms. Bostic is now dead on the side of the road. There's nothing up to that point in these videos that indicate that Mr. Mejia is planning to carry out this offense. Okay? Premeditation. Now you've got to interpret the other evidence as to whether or not Mr. Mejia killed Ms. Bostic. But as it pertains to the premeditation part, there's nothing in these videos to back that up. Now, the general wants you to think that this earlier text about a pregnancy scare may have somehow, some way started these two on this path where Ms. Bostic ended up dead. When I watch these videos, I don't see that. And I submit to you that again, what we see are two people who knew each other before, who obviously spent time together, and who obviously had a sexual relationship at some point. But despite a pregnancy test being found at Mr. Mejia's house, or this text message about pregnancy scare, it doesn't add up. Because by June the 29th of 2024, that's not an issue. There is no pregnancy. There's nothing to be concerned about. She's already said, I'm not pregnant, by the way. So the state is trying to give you a reason why this happened, to show premeditation. If they're going to hang their hat on that, I I submit to you, they haven't done it. It just doesn't make sense. Now, the gentleman went through her presentation of kind of summarizing the evidence that you've seen. And she pointed to the fact that there was then this plan to run away. There's a lot of discussion, obviously, in text messages, and even that day on June the 29th, where that appears to be their plan. They're going to run away. The state also then starts to speculate about other crimes, and Ms. Bostic's not here, but you know yourself, and you see and what you've heard, any talk about conning people or robbing people, that was Ms. Bostic's. That was Ms. Bostic's proposal. But in her defense, I'm going to say, in these videos, our best witness, there is no proof, no indication that any such crime occurred. No conning, no robbery, no carjacking. What we had here were kids. Kids who were, maybe they were playing a game. I even asked that question of one of the state's witnesses. Is it possible they were just playing a game? So when the state tells you that, or when they kind of put that out there for you to digest a little bit, you got to weigh it with what we know, what the real proof is. And the real proof is nothing like that happened in this case. It just didn't happen. So we've got this long day of June 29th when these two are together. And again, several different times, several different videos. There's no fighting, there's no arguing. There's nothing that happens to indicate, number one, that Mr. Mejia is planning to kill Ms. Bostic. It's not premeditated. Were they going to run away? I don't know. Was it another game of theirs? I don't know. I have to speculate about that, just like the state is speculating about them committing other crimes, or at least a plan, or this motive, possible motive of this pregnancy scare being a reason why Mr. Mejia would have wanted to put a plan in place premeditatedly to kill Ms. Bostic. It doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make any sense. In the videos, you see Ms. Bostic sitting in the car, front seat, right beside Mr. Mejia, and she's not being forced to stay there. She's not locked in the car. She's not being threatened, coerced in any way. She's there of her own free will. She is. And this is over a several hour period of time. Her demeanor never changes. Mr. Mejia's demeanor doesn't change. They're both, I would submit, acting normal. They're kids. They're happy, they're affectionate. They're holding hands. She kisses him and hugs him. Again, they're talking, they're laughing. These things we're talking about, it's just talk. Now, the general also wanted you to believe at one point that there's a video and kind of off in the background we're hearing a police car kind of blowing its siren a few times. And I take it that she wants you to believe that Mr. Mejia is concerned about the police being on his tail. Again, when we watch the videos, there's no proof that they've done anything wrong. So what would there have been to worry about? And if the state wants you to believe that maybe that somehow was a trigger to what happened later with Miss Boston, again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. But then again, there's a lot about this that doesn't really make sense. There is hard evidence for you to consider. Obviously, because Miss Boston isn't here. But as the judge instructed you, the state has to prove to you every element of the offense for which he's charged. He's charged with first-degree murder. That carries with it an element of premeditation. And again, I've covered with you several things that just don't show that premeditation. Now, the judge has instructed you, if you don't believe that there was premeditation, then you've got an option. You've got a second-degree option. And you as a jury, you have the hardest job. The general had a hard job. I've had a hard job. But now we're giving you the case, and you have the hard job. You have to take this information, and you have to make a decision that I've never been in your position. I've been on this side of the bar, and this side of the box, in cases like this before. But I do understand and I appreciate how hard that is for you. And I understand, and I hope that you'll take it seriously. And that's what I asked on day one. I asked you that. I said, make the state prove their case. And that includes, again, every element of the defense. That's all I can ask for. That's what Mr. Mejia is entitled to, is a fair trial. Would you agree? That's why our system is set up the way it is. Now, again, at one point in these videos, the state is talking about Mr. Mejia being in the car and how he appears calm. What I told you a moment ago, statements of the attorneys, it's not true. You have to watch that video. You have to make up your mind what his statement is. She's speculating. That's not evidence. I could speculate. We would disagree. You're the ones who have to make up your mind. You have to look at that video and interpret it yourself. Was Mr. Mejia calm? Was he concerned about something? Was he scared? This conversation with Detective Scalise, I can only imagine that if I was 17 years old and had a bunch of police busting in my house at midnight and start asking me questions about a person I knew that had been killed, I'd be scared. And regardless of whether I knew anything or not, I would be scared, and I probably wouldn't answer every question truthfully, because it would take me a while to kind of wrap my head around it. But again, we're not dealing with hardened criminals here. Miss Bostic wasn't a hardened criminal. Mr. Mejia had no real crimes. He's 17 years old. These are not hardened criminals. They're scared kids. What went wrong? What happened? I don't know. I wasn't there. Detective Scalise wasn't there. None of the experts are there. They give us a glimpse into bits and pieces of what happened, and that's all you have to work. And that's why I said your job's not easy. And the last thing I'll point out is this I guess, premeditation element that the state's talking about. When they bring up things like AirPods and debit cards, you know, I asked the witness whether or not one of the witnesses whether or not that card was even still active. And they couldn't tell you. The state's own police couldn't tell you that that card wasn't an active card, or if it was an active card. In fact, the witness that found the card indicated that it was up on that shelf, but it wasn't necessarily hidden. It just had a box kind of partially covering it. He didn't testify that it was hidden. In fact, he said he couldn't say that it was hidden. There was never any proof that Mr. Mejia would have even have used this card or tried to use the card. It just, for the state to, I guess, suggest that this was a crime that was based on premeditation for a debit card, a pair of AirPods, or a pregnancy scare that didn't even exist at that point in time. It doesn't happen. There are parts of this evidence that are going to add up, and this means as it relates to these elements of this first-degree murder. But again, when I'm looking at it from a premeditation standpoint, and you have to look at it, I believe that it's my belief anyway that the proof just isn't there, and you're going to reach that conclusion that there's no premeditation. I wish I could tell you what happened that night, but I can't. I don't know. But your job as a jury, as cold as it sounds, is not to focus on Ms. Bostic. Your job as a jury is to focus on Mr. Mejia and ensure that he receives a fair trial, which again is the only thing I asked you for on day one, to make the state prove their case, every element of the offense which is shown. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I know it's not easy. I appreciate your time. It's a heavy responsibility. And I appreciate you giving this case your time and your attention. Now, I'm finished. But let me tell you what's going to happen next. The general, as the judge showed you, the general gets to get up here and give another closing statement. And she's going to try to wipe away everything I just said and diminish and minimize everything I just offered to you on behalf of Mr. Mejia. That's her job. Doesn't change the facts. If you pay attention to the proof, whatever she says up here shouldn't sway you because you got the proof. You got the videos. You can interpret all this evidence for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. General Nichols, you may make your closing argument.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen. At 10:34 a.m. on June 25th, 2024, Mr. Mejia sent a text message to Trinity Bostic that said, "I'm tired of everything. I'm just exhausted and want to just run off and never come back. I'm done." And she wrote him back, "Me too. Take me with you, please. I don't want to be anywhere if I'm not with you. I'll be quiet. I'll listen. I'll be there to comfort when you need it. I will forever make sure you eat, Fernando. I want to know the real you to the fullest. She found that out, didn't she? Fernando, you're struggling right now, but you got to keep your head up. There's too many people depending on you. You are worth so much more than what you put yourself as to be, out to be, I think is what she meant. I'm depending on you. And you have so much to keep pushing. I know this sounds generic, but it's not. I'm begging fully, honest. You can let the thoughts that eat you alive when you have to win. She's dead 4 days late. By that name, he killed her. No question. They just stood up here and basically told you he killed her. But my friend, Mr. Freeman, thinks we have to tell you why he killed her. I don't have to do that, ladies and gentlemen. I don't. I don't have to tell you why. I just have to tell you that he did it, and it was premeditated. And when we think about premeditation in a case like this, if you don't want to accept the fact that this plan started on June 25th, 2024, that's fine, because under the law, premeditation can be formed in an instant. And when you think of premeditation in a case like this, I want you to think about the moments before Trinity Bostic was shot in the face and left on the side of the road to die. He parks his car on the side of the road on Highway 386. He gets out of that car, walks with her to a tree line. She goes in, pulls down her pants to urinate. He stands there, raises a firearm, and pulls a trigger as she is defenseless, unable to protect herself on the side of the road. That is premeditation in its purest form, ladies and gentlemen. When I stand in front of a jury to give a second closing, I usually have a good idea of what I'm going to say. And I've made a lot of notes. But I don't know what to say about this. I really don't. And I've struggled all week. The cruelty here is through the roof. It is outrageous that a girl that loves a boy, if you want to call him that much, that she's willing to abandon the family that loves her and run off with him to another state, could be murdered and left on the side of the road by that man in 4 days. It is absolutely outrageous. It is terrible. That beautiful girl left to become what you saw. Her family desperately searching. Nothing. Never again. And he let them look for days. Nothing. He knew where she was the entire time. He went back to see after she was dead. We don't know why, but we know he did. I'll agree with my friend, Mr. Freeman, that this is senseless. None of this makes sense. I don't think he said it was senseless, but none of it makes sense. But I'll tell you something. I've been a prosecutor for a long time. I've seen every act of cruelty you could ever imagine perpetrated by one person on another. I stopped trying to make sense of what people do a long time ago. You can't. Sometimes people just do things and you'll never know the reason. You'll never understand it. You just know it happened. That's what we have here. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The premeditation is all over this case. All over it. If you don't want to buy that it happened those days ago, then you can definitely find that it happened right before she was killed. There was no reason for this. She is hugging and kissing him minutes before he kills her. There is no reason for this. There is no reasonable doubt here that this occurred. And it occurred exactly as has been alleged by the state with premeditation. You can also deduce a plan or premeditation from the way somebody acts after they've done something. He goes and gets an icy from Taco Bell after he's killed this girl who loves him so much. The next day, or several days later, after her body is discovered, after her family has spent days trying to find her, and the behavior in that drive-thru with that girl is disgusting. The glee on his face when he finds out that she's been identified. But he knew she'd been dead for days. The laughter, the smiles, and in the disgusting way he wanted to go back to the scene. This was a premeditated execution of Trinity Bostic. That's exactly what it was. The defendant executed her. And then he took anything that could have identified her with him. Her overnight bag, bank card, her phone, her AirPods, took it all and left her there for trash workers to find. Trinity Bostic was not trash. She was a human being. She had a family that loved her. And he took her from them. You don't have to know why he did this, ladies and gentlemen. The premeditation is there. It's all over this case. Trinity Bostic was engaging in conduct that night with Mr. Mejia, who, by the way, is the one who had the gun. She didn't bring that with her. He introduced the gun into this situation, not her. You look at those videos, she's along for the ride. She's in over her head. She made some mistakes. The biggest mistake she ever made was getting involved with that man. He is guilty, ladies and gentlemen, of what he is charged with. And the state to receive would ask me to find him guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, General Nichols.